Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Revolutionary Jargon on the FHL network. Today, we have a very special guest. She was a speaker at last week's March for Medicare for All event in Detroit. She is also the co chair of the National Green Party. Yes, we have Renee Stone Grover. How are you?
Hi, it's Ray, but I'm fine. How are
Ray.
you? Yes.
I'm doing great. Sorry.
it's
Sorry. Look at me starting off bad already.
don't mind everything going on in my background. It's dinner time, so
Oh, it's fine.
yeah.
I completely understand. This is what happens too when you get a working mom at the wrong time. Well, you wanted to. One of the big reasons I brought you on today was really to talk about really Black LGBTQ erasure in politics, as well as how
Yes.
they're being affected really in
Yes.
the political system. So, just really to give a brief introduction, can you introduce yourself to our audience and also give a perspective on the topic we're going to discuss?
Hello, my name is Ray Stone Grover. I'm actually the co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the Green Party of the United States. I've been an activist for a long time, and I've actually am proud to be able to talk about a lot of issues that affect the Black community and a lot of different communities.
Perfectly well said there. So about like the black erasure, I mean the LGBTQ black erasure in politics, what's something you've seen that's really sparked your interest that you see that's bad that we can really change in our political spectrum to really make those individuals feel more inclusive in our politics?
Well, for one thing, one of the things that I would like to talk about is in the Black community, we do have a tendency to lean highly traditional, and oftentimes what that does is that creates this belief system um, that oftentimes LGBTQ issues are white issues, or that they do not affect Black politics or Black people politically, which is just not true. We've seen in the Black Lives Matter space that a lot of the Black women who have fought hardest and have been very loud and present have been women who are part of the LGBTQ community, who have been part of the non-binary community, who have been very active in making sure and supporting the Black community regarding violence from the police and regarding violence from the system.
Hmm. Perfectly well said there. Me as a member of the Black LGBTQ youth in politics, I have noticed that even those who are Black and trans, those who are Black and gay, especially in politics, really struggle, specifically in our society in terms of housing, in terms of mental health as well. What do you believe something policy-wise we could do to make it better for those individuals to have adequate housing, to get the type of healthcare they need to really benefit their mental health?
Policy wise, there's so many changes that could be made. Even when we include family housing, we should probably just focus more so on marginalized communities, people who experience oppression. There's also issues regarding our disabled community. Black people with disabilities are almost not seen. And so we really do need to be more open in our policies to recognize and to make space for people who are experiencing just marginalization, who don't feel like they don't have a voice, who experience things like discrimination at work in many different ways. We just really need to be a more present society and a more present culture for people who have different needs.
Perfectly well said there. There is an article that piqued my interest that I do want to share my screen and show you as well. It
Okay.
was an article written by NBC News really describing the material conditions that the Black LGBTQ youth struggle with, as really as well as how they feel in the society in general. So this is by NBC News. It says the small but mighty power of Black LGBTQ voters with trans lives on the line and several LGBTQ policies rolled back under the Trump administration. We talked about Black LGBTQ voters about the election. This was actually around the 2020 election late in October.
Mm-hmm.
So it really describes that many Black LGBTQ youth are really combating on two different fronts, not only being Black in America, but also being trans and being gay as well. They
Yes.
also suffer from underlying conditions of homelessness, housing instability, sexual assault, and also as mental health. And so you're describing many of those different policies that we can add to protect them as well. And so, just to keep going on here, it says too, it's very important for queer Black people to be engaged in politics and civil discourse so we can decide
Yes.
our future. So, in your eyes, like, what is something that really people can do to not only get these stories out about Black LGBTQ youth, but to really raise awareness to the conditions that they go through so we actually can fix the problem?
Well, okay, so I'm going to touch on some of the things that we've been experiencing locally, or not locally, but within the Green Party. We recently, and you have asked me about some of the issues that have happened with our Georgia Green Party. And our Georgia Green Party came out very strong on a stance that was anti LGBTQ, it was anti transgender. And specifically, they say that they weren't, but a lot of their policies and their statements came out and were not very open to the transgender community, which also includes our Black transgender community. And so we took a stance on disaffiliating with them because we have, it's clear in our 10 key values that we support people who are transgender. We support a community we support our transgender community, and we do not want people to feel marginalized. And so ways that people can be involved and be more involved is making sure that that is a stance that every single political party takes, and make sure that they recognize and understand that transgender people are part of the community, have fought really hard to expand all of the rights of everyone in the community because of the fact that they have been so open and fought so hard for their own rights. We've all benefited from it in one way or another. And so by being more active and being more open about that, and being and taking the time and being active in community to make sure that transgender people, as well as other marginalized communities, are not experiencing as much hardship when it comes to food insecurity and housing insecurity. These can be done by calling local agencies and organizations, asking, what kind of support are they giving to the community, and if you see things that are not right, making sure that you make a note of it, because if people are taking action against people who are marginalized already, then there needs to be actions taken to make sure that those people are protected.
Perfectly well said there. You did mention the Green Party, so I will show the actual statement on the screen by the National Org. So give me 1 second for that. Sorry, this takes a while.
It's okay.
That's fine. Sorry, it takes a little bit of while to get this to load. Um, okay, yeah, I'll actually read the statement. So I'll actually share the screen right now. Sorry for our radio audience, just making sure that we get the actual note on the screen so I can read it out loud for you guys. So let
Okay.
me know if you see it on the screen. You see it on the screen?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So this is the statement of on the Georgia Green Party decision. This is by the National Green Party. It says the Diversity Committee of the Green Party of the United States offers the following statement in response to the Georgia Green Party's affirmation of the Declaration of Women's Sex-Based Rights. We find this declaration as to the oppression of transgender individuals, and as such, it is inconsistent with Green values. All women deserve dignity and respect, and the right to govern their own bodies and lives with equity and justice in our nation and the world. The Green Party of the United States has affirmed in our platform that trans women, trans men are men, and all children deserve the opportunity to live and grow in the world into our own self determined place and presence, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. Discrimination and oppression based upon a person's gender are inappropriate in all circumstances, and every person should be conscious of the oppression and lived experiences of all women, whether identified female at birth or later in life. The Diversity Committee affirms the rights of all individuals to self identify and live out their identities without restrictions, neither social, legislative, nor cultural. We also call for an examination of social norms that demean women and femininity, or that marginalize those who do not fit or choose to accept socially constructed gender norms or expectations. We oppose state parties or caucuses taking stances that violate Green Party standards. These principles should provide the guidance for how we continue to engage each other on these and other issues that may come in the future. We have the opportunity to lead in a world where clear leadership is needed through education and positive discussion that will lead to affirmations that the entire party can stand behind. I think that's a very good statement that they came out with, specifically after what happened in Georgia, because this goes into a debate about intersectionality regarding those who come into a movement and come into a party. So it wouldn't be for the best interest of for the people inside the party and for an organization to be against certain marginalized groups discriminatively like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what are your thoughts on that National Green Party really letter that they came out with?
Um, with the statement.
Yes.
So the statement is very clear. It's very clear and concise, and it's about it reflects our values, and I agree and align with it completely. As a matter of fact, I do believe that not just our party, but I do believe that cleaning house and making sure that the understanding intersection is definitely a huge impact that we do need to make as we continue to make policy moving forward.
Perfectly well said there. One thing I do want to segue back to when I first introduced you about being a part of the March for Medicare for All event.
Mhm.
What was it like for you being a speaker there and really witnessing being with the people at those marches? Like, how did you feel about that?
I love being around people who are willing to stand up for change. It was the march itself was a very humbling event because of the fact that there were so many people who needed to be there to speak out about what they needed and to recognize that we all had needs. My speech was extremely vulnerable and in that respect and in that vein it was something that actually kind of reminded me, it hit me a little bit harder than I had expected it to.
Yeah, you gave a great speech. I loved
Thank
it a
you.
lot. Loved a lot of the speakers that were there as well, and I'm just
Same
glad
here.
to really have you on today. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
So really back to the Black LGBTQ youth, you gave really some great statements on policy wise what we can go to. In your eyes, what can we do to really change these stigmas and societal norms that really Black LGBTQ youth go through in our
Well,
society? And
within
oh, go ahead.
with the Green Caucus, we actually have our Yes Caucus, and our Yes Caucus works very, very hard to represent everything that they're going through. So, with that particular caucus, they have really truly taken a stance on the fact that everyone should be supported. That we have to recognize the way that we use language. We have to recognize the way that we speak to each other, and we have actually adapted a lot of different aspects of what our modern day culture experiences, including the discussion around pronouns, respecting pronouns, and respecting the pronouns of people's choosing.
Perfectly well said there. Yeah, I think that's pretty good statements that you gave, really about what the Green Party is doing nationally or in many state parties in terms of inclusivity, being respectful for the LGBTQ youth in terms of use of their pronouns, also in terms of policy that we can advocate really to protect their rights. So thank you for that.
And I also want to just go ahead and state that I'm really, really proud of our Yes Caucus and the work that they've been doing and the way that they've been coming in and making all of us recognize how much growth we really should be stepping into. I personally am really proud to have that type of future representation.
Perfect there. You did mention during the March Medicare events that you were running for Lieutenant Governor of Michigan for the Green Party. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Well, we're great to hear that. So, what's your platform you're running on for Michigan's Green Party? Yeah, let's hear that.
So, with that particular platform and things that are going on, I have really truly allowed Destiny, who is a woman of the people and who's very outspoken, to stand in the forefront. Because when it really comes down to it, with the way that we work together, we're both very modern. We're modern moms, and we have a very modern life together. So basically, the platform has been that we are open to single taxpayer. We want a taxpayer program that is able to support people who are in need, for especially with Medicare for all. We are oh my goodness, I'm blanking. We're definitely into kind of making sure that we support the homeless population and to get people off the street, because homelessness has affected not just her, not just me, but different people throughout the state at different times, and people in the Green Party that we all know. We want to make sure that there are jobs available, and we don't want to continue to see the way that jobs are being made, supporting like the prison system. So we want to create sustainable jobs and sustainable living wages for people who are looking for help. Um, those are just some of the conversations. Oh, we also want to recognize that sex workers are dealing with a lot of difficulty and challenges. We want to recognize sex work and sex workers, and create more opportunity for sex workers to be able to work and be supported and not have to deal with a lot of the alienation, isolation, and hardships that they've been dealing with. I am a mental health advocate and supporter, so I am all about making sure that we address issues around mental illness. We address the constant trauma that the country has been dealing with, making sure that there are support systems, not just therapy, but that our resources are available for people who to deal with the behavioral issues, to work around the family issues that people are dealing with, loss of jobs and homes. I mean, I can go on and on. Our platform is extremely leftist, which there's nothing wrong with, but we're also just about supporting people and making sure that we're there for everyone who's been suffering and dealing with a lot of the challenges that have happened.
Perfectly well said there. I think in our state of Michigan, jobs, also climate change, as well as infrastructure, are really, in my eyes and others, three big issues. I do want to talk
Completely.
about infrastructure because in Michigan, Lord knows we have some bad infrastructure in terms of roads that need to be fixed as well. That was also Governor Gretchen Whitmer's biggest campaign promise back in 2018 when she won the race, was to essentially fix the damn roads. So in terms of really the Green Party, in terms of your platform, what does your platform look like in terms of infrastructure and towards fixing the roads, bridges, dams as well? So what's your comment on that?
Truthfully, there's so much work that does need to be done. As you know, that dam just broke like last year, so we do need to make sure. I think there's a couple of overpasses that definitely, like, it's just without a doubt things need to be fixed, and those are jobs. And so I support and stand behind, putting whatever money we have available and finding ways to get more funding to be able to fix overpasses, and like all the structure that we can. We also really need to look at our housing, our pipelines. With all the flooding that has been in Detroit, we do need to look at what's going on with the pipelines and how we can better build structure underneath, so that that's not as big of an issue. It's just been such a big, there's been a lot of people who've been affected.
Yeah, you're right about the flooding, especially really, and I believe since in July, this is like the most rain we've had in like decades, and it's really kind of unnatural. Usually, we get a lot of rain in April and May, and so
Right.
that's really has affected really in the Detroit area because due to how the highway system was created back in the 50s, the roadways were and highways are created under the city instead of on top or at the same level as many other states across the country. So, and also due to a lot of the pumps in the area
Yes.
really being defaulted because the power was going out. So those pumping systems can't drain the water off the highways, which caused
Oh,
obscene amount of flooding in the Detroit area. So I think really what your platform and what really every platform for whatever party you're in should really focus in on infrastructure, especially for Michigan. And so that actually is a good segue for climate change because that's also really another big issue for Michigan, for Michigan's wildlife, for
yes.
fishing, and for
Yes.
waterways in Michigan as well. So, what does your platform look like in terms of really climate change?
Well, climate change, we have to. Um, Destiny has a really good plan for this, and I can't repeat it, but it's just like looking at minimizing emissions, finding sustainable. I personally believe that we really need to look into like cannabis and hemp farms, and doing things like looking into more not just sustainable recycling, but minimizing, and not just minimizing waste, but we have to do a lot of backlogging too, as was kind of um, revealed by the green water that came out of 696. So we do have to do a lot of backlogging, looking at our auto industry. They are supposed to be going greener, but we really need to act on this right now, and we need to minimize our dependency on the auto industry and make it more about giving people options and opportunities that are not going to destroy like our beaches, not destroy our beaches, not destroy our grass and our waterways. So I definitely want to do a lot more research on ways that we can be more supportive of our communities. But I also want to make sure that we're doing things that are long term and sustainable. Um, that is just going to not be so dependent on oil, and our pipeline, not be so dependent on our pipelines coming out of Canada. And
Perfectly well said there. There's 2 points I want to make in addition to everything you said. One
Mhm.
is Nestle, and the other is really is the Flint water crisis and many other type of cities that deal with not having clean water. And so I want to know, like, you know, I'm not asking if you have like a policy already for your platform, but what are your thoughts really on like companies, water companies like Nestle, who pump millions of gallons of water out of the Great Lakes almost for free. They essentially only pay for the packaging to put the water in based on these policies that were written by the state, which gives these companies the leeway to make these type of changes. And the reason why I bring this up is because local farming areas have trouble because it lowers the water table.
It
When you have
does.
these companies that drill hundreds of feet below the water table, it sucks up the water, and other farmers don't have pipes that dig deeper, so their wells dry up. And as
Right.
well as we know, with the Flint water crisis, what happened, where you have these dirty pipes, you have these different type of instances where the kids were drinking dirty lead water with the pipes that was the
Yes.
Flint water. We know Rick Snyder covered it up. That was a story that was covered by Jordan Sheraton from Status Quo. So what in your eyes, what would you do if you were a governor to really alleviate the crises that happen in the Flint water crisis or many other areas in Michigan? And what are your thoughts on really Nestle too?
I'm also a big component of working with organizations like Climate Action. There's a lot of things that people are doing to work locally and at local levels to make sure that there's energy and efforts being put behind cleaning up. My thoughts specifically on Nestle are that Nestle, we know, has been terrible in a lot of the decisions that it has made regarding how it affects people. And I personally don't think that we should be working with them that much, and I don't think that they should be getting any types of tax breaks. Um, as far as the Flint water situation, which is, I I don't want to use the word tragic, but I do want to use language that is very thoughtful of the fact that those are people who are still suffering today. They still haven't had any type of solution or resolve, and really, there's so much work that has to be done in there, and the excuses that have been used not to properly clean their pipes and not to properly address what the people have been experiencing, while they have received a settlement, which is, I mean, that's great. Are you gonna change the pipes? Like, there's just a lot of issues that go into that, and unfortunately, the way that I see and have viewed Michigan politicians, and not necessarily politicians, but the state legislature, is they don't really seem to care about people who look like me or who look like you. And we have seen it, and we've seen what has happened, and we've also seen the history of the way that Detroit has had to go like through recessions and depressions. And so I believe in that we need to find funding, we need to find money, and we need to put people, real people, to work to fix the piping that's going through Flint. We need to restore the water back to Lake Huron. We also need to make sure that we clean up and keep our lakes clean and take care of them. And Nestle's not helping with that. And I'll be very honest, it doesn't really seem like the big three are helping with that either. So we need to find our own ways to make sure that we're relying on our own communities to support and take care of the land and the resources that are around them.
Perfectly well said there. I'll definitely be supporting you as well as your other candidate for governor as well. I believe your platform, based on what I'm hearing so far, is great. I'll look into it even further. Best of luck to you guys. I
Thank you
really
very
looking
much.
forward to it.
Thank you.
So I guess what I wanted to talk to you next about before we really wrap up is we wanted to talk about really the annual anti-oppression meeting. Now, for me, this
Yes.
is kind of my first time hearing it. So can you give me and my audience really a brief introduction of what it was and what your feelings are about it?
So our annual meeting, we have a meeting yearly, and we focus on anti-oppression this year. And the main reason why we focus on anti-oppression is because people need to understand that there are definitely challenges for our marginalized communities, and to be a political party, part of the reason why they are with us is to be able to discuss and address some of the hardships and of being marginalized as a community. So we spoke on issues around racism, in which I was part of a presentation. We talked about racism within our party. We also had some conversations around disability and technology, because for people who have hardships with sight or challenges with certain aspects, technology has not caught up to the need yet all the time. And we do, as a community and culturally, we need to be more supportive of our people who are dealing with disabilities. We also need to support our communities of people who are intersectional. Like, again, we have an entire issue with erasing Black people with disabilities and erasing people from marginalized communities that intersect with disabilities, and we have to be better. And so that's one of the biggest aspects that people did. There were frailty myths. One of the most impactful trainings that I attended was on reparations and the way that the tax system has been used to take money out, or to destabilize the Black community. And so we have to kind of educate ourselves. We definitely need to educate ourselves on things like this, because as we're hurting ourselves as we continue to reinforce and support racism in ways like this that are financially just destroying the opportunity for people to advance. And if those people are not able to advance and they're in our communities, they're going to require resources to get help. And if we're not creating or offering opportunities for people to get help, and this includes in other ways, this includes people with disabilities, this includes people who are trying to build families, who are part of the LGBTQ. If we are continuing to make obstacles for people who are trying to advance themselves, then as a culture, we're all left behind. And so it was really important for us to recognize this and to work better as an entire political party across the nation.
That's very well said there, because one of the big things that came to my eyes when we were talking is that one of our FHL members, JB, he had a disabilities panel, which had many other people, and they're really talking about what they struggle with as people with disabilities across the country, whether it be for healthcare or for things that they were born with. And I think it's great to really have discussions with those people about the things that they suffer so that we can find programs and policies we can put in place electorally so that we can ensure that they're protected and to be
Exactly.
ensured that they could be supported. And the other thing is the Black Commission's report that was released. It was presented to the UN, signifying many ways in terms of international code that the United States broke by the treatment of Black people as well. So those are two
Yes.
big things that everyone should check out. And I really agree with your stance on anti oppression.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's really all I have for today. I think this was actually a really quick, sweet conversation that we've had today. I really appreciate you for being a hardworking mom, taking some time out for me today. I really appreciate you, and I really hope to have you back on.
Thank you so much. And I hope so too, soon. Thank you again, and I appreciate this time. Make sure you look out for Destiny Clayton and Regina Raystone Grover, for Michigan gubernatorial candidates.
Okay, thank you very much. You're free to step out, and I appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, we're going to continue our coverage on revolutionary jargon. That was actually a very sweet interview I've had with the lieutenant governor candidate for the Green Party, Ray. It was actually a great conversation we've had, one of the quickest interviews I've had, but it was also a very nice one. So we had many great discussions really about what happened with the controversy around with this Georgia Green Party about being anti-trans, which is really bad in terms of being intersectional with a national party. So the National Green Party made that correct statement and really took the Georgia Green Party away from the national leadership and national delegation, which was actually a smart thing to do until they get their act together. We also really talked about her campaign that she's running currently as the lieutenant governor, running for the Green Party's lieutenant governor in Michigan. So I'll definitely be looking into her campaign as well as her partner who's running for governor. That's something everyone should keep up with. As me living in Michigan, I'll definitely be looking at both of them. I'm kind of excited. We also talked about Ray's speech at the March for Medicare for All and how she felt about meeting so many different activists that were on the grassroots talking and engaging amongst themselves. And she gave a very passionate speech. If you want to check out that speech, it is on Fred Hampton Leftist Network on our YouTube page. So check that out. The speech in its entirety, I believe it's 9 minutes. So yeah, you should check that out. And the last thing we talked about was really the oppression of really not only Black people, but those who have disabilities. And it's actually a great conversation to have. So we have a very, very, very special guest returning revolutionary Jargonaut. She is also the co-host of Nerdologics on FHL Network, and she is also the host of the Killjoy Guide. We have friend of FHL, member of FHL, all along great person. We have Killjoy Meg. Hey Meg, how are you?
Hey, don't prop me up too much. Goodness gracious,
Yeah, so
you make me blush over here.
Yeah, so how have you been?
Doing okay. You know, same old stress. My internet's still driving me crazy, but just a few more days.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, internet. We got to get that fixed. I bet you're going to be crying when you get it fixed. You're going to be crying so happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that I want to have a router, you know, like I want to crush the router and like have like a celebrate, like basically sacrifice the router for the greater good, but unfortunately I have to return it to the other insurance company or internet company. But I'm like, I really want to have like a celebratory router destroying party and just like knock over it with hammers, like good riddance.
Oh yeah, I agree. I can't wait for that day to happen. So the reason why we're doing this together. Yeah, so the reason why we're doing this together is there's actually a big topic we both wanted to really talk about, both of us together, is regards of mental health and as well as what happened in the Olympics with Simone Biles. So Meg, let's really get this started. Give us an intro to really what's been on your mind about this.
Okay, so those of you who, I don't know who's been paying attention to this story and who hasn't, so I'll just give a quick introduction for it. Is that Simone Biles, she's been through a lot this year. Like at nationals, I think she actually competed with like 2 broken toes, and she battled through that. But then finally, when it came to the Olympics, they were getting ready to compete in the team all around, and she just was not in the right mental state in order to compete. And she thought, you know what, I'm not in the right mental space. I feel like I'm going to screw up. So rather than risk losing everything for the team, risk injuring myself, I'm going to step aside because there are other competitors who can take my spot, because there are alternates. Like, even though she is one of the basically the best gymnast in the entire world, and she will continue to compete in the individual events, but she just decided, like, Valerie, it probably is not your phone acting up, it's probably my internet.
Yeah, it's just Meg's internet.
Trust me, it's probably my internet. Yeah, have a spiritual goodbye to your router. That's exactly, yes, it needs to go. But so she decided to step aside for her own mental health and for the good of the team. She thought that was the best action that she could take. And there have been a lot of people supporting her, telling her how strong of a decision this was. And there are others who have called her a coward and a quitter, and in the words of Charlie Kirk, a selfish sociopath. So that's, so that's just a general introduction to everything. And so what are your initial thoughts on it, RJ?
Well, me personally, my initial thoughts on this, and I'll give them, but just a comment on Charlie Kirk, like, how could he say that she's a sociopath or whatever? Like, that's so disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, pot meets
Mm-hmm.
kettle, but what the hell? Like, why would he say something like that? But to be in a more serious note, like my initial thoughts on the Simone Biles situation was that she made a smart decision for herself. You know, because if you look at sport and you look at the mentality and how we go about mental health in America, you're always like, tough it out. You know, don't be so weak. You know, that's when the masculinity or the femininity portions start kicking in about like societal norms and gender norms about how you're supposed to act and supposed to function mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Those start kicking in. When it's guys, it's like, oh, toughen up, man up, don't be all the toxic male traits.
Yeah.
And then for women, and for other women, how they interact is like women tell themselves they have to be tougher because they don't want to be seen as weak. So for Simone Biles in this situation, not only did she save her mental health, but her physical health as well, because there was a young gymnast back in 1980. She was, I believe, 16 years old. She was a young gymnast, and she said she was going through mental health at the time in the 1980s. She was on the balance beam. And I forgot the actual term that they have. I think, but just to describe the term, it's like when a gymnast feels like their mental capability and physical abilities are disconnected, it makes it difficult to do their tumbles. Because Simone Biles explains that when she feels her mental state and body aren't aligned, she can't tell where she's going to land. It's virtually impossible due to the type of tricks and flips that they make. So you kind of have to go based off of feel. But when your mind is cloudy, not in the right place, that feel evaporates, right? And so to explain to that situation of that young gymnast in 1980, when her mental state wasn't in the right place, and she was forced by the Olympic Committee, I believe by Russia at the time, to actually perform her stunts. When she pleaded not to, she did a jump on the balance beam, and she hit her head square on the beam, and she fractured parts of her spine, and left her paralyzed. And I believe she passed away about 10 or 15 years ago. And left her paralyzed for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also many moments of gymnasts breaking their legs, other parts of their bodies. It takes a long while to heal. You've mentioned here that Simone Biles actually broke some of her toes. And so I think Simone Biles took that into a factor. Like, one, I don't want to injure myself probably any further. You're still recovering from breaking your toes. And also, two, the mental factor. You don't want to really essentially put your teammates down, or you don't want to give a worse score when someone else on the bench could probably do better if you're not up to those capabilities. And so I think that was a smart decision she made, because then Sun Lee, she ended up winning the women's individual all around. She got gold. And also Jordan Chiles, who looks up to Simone Biles as a mentor. She ends up performing very well. And Simone Biles stood on the sideline clapping and cheering for all of them, which was beautiful. So, and that was wow, I talked for a long time. But those are like my initial thoughts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like those are my initial thoughts about like everything that happened. And I was listening to a lot of sports talk shows lately about this. So to my surprise, they're very supportive. And I think it's a good thing because, in football and baseball and these different type of sports, no one's really sensitive. Like I saw some of the comments on Instagram and Twitter saying, oh, this is like if Jordan quit the NBA Finals Game 7. Oh, this is like LeBron just showing up and quitting at halftime. And it's like, it's just ridiculous. So like, what are some things you saw?
Here's my response even to that. It's like, do we not remember? Like, maybe some of y'all aren't old enough to remember this, but Michael Jordan, at the peak of his career, quit basketball. He took off for a year to go play baseball because he no longer enjoyed the sport. He felt like he was not in the right headspace. He didn't feel like he could perform well. So he quit at the peak of his career to go play baseball. So when we're talking about, it's just like Michael Jordan, playing through the flu. It's like, okay, cool. Michael Jordan played through the flu. Good for him. Tiger Woods played with a broken leg. Okay, good for him. Even Carrie Shrug, who, at the 96 Olympics won gold on a broken ankle. Good for her. They can play through that. That's fantastic. But that should not be the norm. That should not be the norm, because that pressure that we put on our athletes to perform, it really takes a toll. And just like, imagine going through that over and over and over again, being told, like, no, suck it up, you gotta do this. Like, imagine all the pressure that puts on your mind. And we've been seeing this a lot more often, like Simone Biles, stepping aside. Naomi Osaka decided not to play during the U.S. Open because she has social anxiety. There's also I was listening to Colin Kalinske earlier today, and he was talking about a golf player who he's talking about how much depression he's been going through, and how he didn't feel like there was anything worth, like, what is all worth. And so he took some time off from playing golf to deal with his own mental issues. So I think it's so awesome to finally see all these athletes really starting to want to take care of themselves. Like, we should be encouraging this type of behavior of saying, like, you know what? No, this is not, like, to put that much pressure on somebody. To put that much pressure on somebody and say that, no, you must perform. Go, Dan. Go, monkey, dance. Dance for me. Like, that's such a capitalist mindset. Like, no, we don't have to be that competitive. We should be encouraging people that if you're not in the right mental state and you feel like you're not going to perform well, then yeah, take a break. You deserve to take that break. Like, I'm curious as to what Gary means by Michael Jordan is mixing apples with oranges. He still took a break. That's my whole point. Is that?
I think what you're leaving. I think what you left out is that Michael Jordan. The reason why he took a break was mostly because it was after his dad died, and he got depression, and he left because his father always wanted him to play baseball. So he actually wanted to try baseball and out of his father. So I think that's kind of the one background we kind of forgot.
And that's a totally fair point. But my point is just that he did take a break. He took a break from basketball. And if you want to talk about even people, athletes who are mourning their parents, let's talk about Sha'Carri Richardson and the fact that she was mourning her mother's death, smoked some weed in order to relax, and because of that, she couldn't perform. She was not allowed to perform at the Olympics. So we have two very interesting stories about two Black women, one who people are demanding perform, even though she doesn't feel like she's in the right mental state, and one woman who wants to perform, but it's denied because she decided to smoke weed in order to relax. It's like, what is wrong with our goddamn society? You want to pick up on that, RJ?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to stop freezing. Yeah, your internet has like a 3-second delay, so I'm waiting for like your screen to catch up. But yeah, like my thoughts on like Sha'Carri Richardson is the same as yours. Like when I like Sha'Carri Richardson, like in terms of like weed and everything, like Michael Phelps, the difference between Michael Phelps and Sha'Carri Richardson is the difference between CBD oil versus THC. So like apparently it's okay to have CBD but not THC. Like that is ridiculous. Like it's the same plant, but you're being discriminatory in terms of the genetical makeup of said plant. Like that's just ridiculous. And like the instance with Sha'Carri Richardson, how the Olympics basically like suspended her from the games because they said she violated the medical protocols. Well, my thoughts on this is that if she's smoking weed and still acing the entire competition, it's actually helping the competition. Imagine how fast she would run if she didn't have weed lungs. Like, I don't think we're putting that into factor. Like, that's a skill. Like, that's a skill to have weed. That's a skill to have weed lungs and burning out the competition. Like, that is what is ridiculous about that. And like one more thing too is that Michael Phelps. and many other athletes really talked about struggle with mental health. Like Michael Phelps almost said that
Mm-hmm.
when you're at your highest point, you're also at your weakest because everyone has this personal affiliation to what you are, but then you eventually lose yourself and you don't have that type of support system that you would have at the top. Like they always say, it's lonely at the top. And so Shakari
Right.
Richardson, like you said, like she began using cannabis because her mom died, and so that's one of the big things that was able to use for her to cope and deal with that type of situation. And so you sent me a video that I want to share with the audience that really is a great
Mm-hmm.
trailer that really shows what Olympic athletes go through and the type of mentality that they have to have, how they don't really have the best support system, and how a lot of them really help themselves dig out of that hole. So I showed that video with you guys. Hopefully we don't get a copyright claim. Yeah, let me see. Oh, here it is. So let me share this real quick. Let me know if you can see it, Meg.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to keep talking because we're on radio and I don't want like a dead silence. So let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, this is a great trailer. This is a trailer for a film called The Weight of Gold. It's on HBO Max, and I would highly recommend people watch it.
Okay, and we're starting.
Michael Phelps is one of the fastest swimmers in the world.
None of us had normal childhoods.
I want to win a gold medal in tennis. I want to win.
I knew it was the biggest stage that I would perform for in my life.
For Olympians, that's what.
Uh-oh.
What happened? Did it freeze?
I think
defines you.
Athletes work their
there we
entire
go.
lives for
It's
this
back.
moment.
I wanted to do everything I could to be the best skater I could.
Everything revolves around this sole focus, and that sole focus is the Olympics. And now the next 40 seconds will dictate our human lives.
But after the Olympics, the village doors close, and that's kind of it.
Win or lose, I felt a dramatic emptiness.
We're just so lost. A good 80%, maybe more, go through some kind of post-Olympic depression.
It's gold, and then what?
I didn't develop outside interests.
I thought of myself as just a swimmer and not a human being. That's where I was just like, why don't I just end it all?
From the outside, it's like you got everything.
Athletes just don't talk about our weaknesses.
That just cracks the facade.
Mainstream media love building somebody up and then come crashing down.
Depression puts you into a spiral. You start getting deeper and deeper into it.
He was my best friend.
We have to do something. And this is important.
Youth around the world watch and look up to these people.
Giving my blood, sweat, and tears. And all I'm asking is that someone can help me get through this.
We're human. I don't think I have to say anything else.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's get your first thoughts, Meg, on that. What was your thoughts on that that trailer? It really hit home.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that trailer a few times, but still, it gets to me every single time that I watch it because it's like, as particularly as someone who has, battled anxiety, depression, like I know the depths of those feelings that kind of worthlessness that you feel like at your very worst. And I mean, just imagine, just put yourselves in their shoes for just 1 second. Like, don't think like, oh, they have everything. They have, gold medals. They have just imagine, think of them as human beings for 2 seconds, and that they're devoting their entire lives to performing at this one event in front of billions of people across the world. That's what they are dedicating hours and hours and hours of their lives to. As Sasha Cohen said, like, you know, she had developed no outside interests. All that her life was just figure skating. And you're not allowed to, as someone else said in the trailer, like, athletes are not allowed to talk about their weaknesses. And that kind of goes to what you think, RJ. It's just that mindset, especially here in the United States, it's kind of capitalist mindset of, no, can't show weakness. Must push on, must keep pushing through, must be competitive, win, 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 win. Must keep pushing through. No, fight all that back. Got to keep on tunnel vision. Because all that mind is about is this one moment in which I have to perform at peak performance. And if I don't, then what is all this worth? And to think of yourself in such a narrow way that all of your worth is based on how you perform as one moment of your life. And then what happens afterward? Like, win or lose, okay, your Olympics are over. And even with Simone Biles, so, you know, she's 24, she probably won't compete again. So now, like, okay, so win or lose, you know, all that support gone, all that training gone, your coach is gone, no job opportunities, sponsorships gone. And so you're win or lose, you're kind of just left with nothing. And you're just like, okay, what do I do with my life now? I've dedicated my entire life to this one thing. What am I supposed to do with my life? I'm only 20, you know, especially like someone like Michael Phelps or Simone Biles, I'm only like 24, 25, 28 years old. What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? Because I have no other skills except this one thing. So, absolutely, Valerie. Like, I've always wanted to get the semicolon tattoo because I think it's so important. It's just I haven't done it yet. I do have other tattoos though, but I mean, just imagine like having that one-track mind of saying, "This is my worth as a human being. This is all I'm worth as a human, is how I perform at this one event." It's like, and we need to stop, and this is why I think it's so important what Simone Biles did, what Naomi Osaka did, is, no, they're human beings. They're not performing monkeys who are just supposed to go out and dance for us. And the way that I almost think of, the way that they say, no, you're betraying your country by stepping aside. Like, no, they're not. I mean, that reminds me of the way that we treat, you know, our soldiers, how we support our troops, that, okay, here's all this support that you're going to receive as a soldier. You go off to war, and when you come back, you're a fractured human being, and you may have PTSD. They're like, thank you for your service. Bye now. You're useless to us. Because you can't perform for us anymore, so you're useless. So I feel like it's the same kind of treatment that we see with our troops, that, like, no, you're betraying our country if you don't do this thing. And I think that is truly disgusting behavior, especially since as athletes, they don't get paid to go to the Olympics. I mean, they do get money to go through training, they do get prize money in certain events, but the Olympics doesn't pay them. They're amateurs in most cases. All that support from sponsorships, and once they've won, maybe a year later, all those sponsorships are gone. And one of the things that this documentary talks about is how many, like, I think Michael Phelps said 80% deal with depression after the Olympics. And the documentary covers several people who took their own lives. You know, which also kind of feeds back into, you know, kind of comparing them to the truth, or all of our veterans who are either living on the street or who have taken their own lives. It's like, you know, what is your gold medal going to buy you? You know, what is your Purple Heart? What is that going to buy you when you come back? So, thoughts on that, RJ?
Yeah, so I have some thoughts on that, like specifically on the gold, then what? That hit home. And it's because for people like me who are athletes, and for those who are athletes, you spend a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of conditioning, a lot of sacrificing to reach your top goal, to hit your athletic peak, to where you feel dominant, and for you to really truly reach that time of ecstasy where you're proud of yourself. And for a lot of these Olympic athletes, they spend 3 years out of every four, because Olympics is every 4 years, training constantly, hard, every day, conditioning, doing all these types of making different. If you're in gymnastics, making these type of tricks, and
And
the
doing it over
feeling
and
that
over and
these
over again until it's muscle memory.
exactly. And so, and a lot of what they do, specifically when they're talking about gold and what, after they get gold or get a medal, a depression hits in, because it's like, I've reached my top goal, but now I have to do it over again. And that entire process, a lot of these people, they've sacrificed family and friends, and a lot of them probably don't have any. Like, that's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rush, the type of dopamine that goes in their brains that makes them feel happy about chasing, because like it's the same thing with a runner's high. Um, the type of happiness you receive to reach that goal, and once you get it, it's not, you're coming down from it, and you have to restart all over again. And so that's really when the depression kicks in. And it's really interesting in that trailer how they really talked about not having a social life, and those who have committed suicide or thought about doing it off of that is very, very shocking. My personal feel with that is like doing sports in college, whether there's bowling or any type of athletic sport. When you win, no one can touch you. You're the happiest, you feel accomplished, proud of yourself. You feel like you would do it all over again. And afterwards, it's a hard time to get yourself back at that mentality, to all of a sudden wake up the next day and do it all over again. It's exhausting, not only physically, but mentally. And you take out a lot of yourself, and you don't really spend a lot of time with family and friends. So that hurts as well. And really, with Simone Biles herself, what's really worrying is that I hope she has a support system needed. She has her girls that are gymnasts as well. She also is a survivor of, Larry Nasser, former doctor for Michigan State University as well. He was also on the USA gymnastics team, doctor. She retweeted a tweet when someone tweeted out that Simone Biles is going through a lot as a young gymnast. So I know that for a fact because she retweeted that. I hope she has a support system needed. I'm glad she's taken this step for her mental health as well. And you mentioned Simone Biles, which is we just talked about Simone Biles. Jesus Christ, RJ. Naomi Osaka, the Japanese tennis star, and she is a four-time Grand Slam winning champion. She has won the U.S. Open twice, and she's also won the Australian Open twice. She, for the first time, represented her country in her home Olympics, our home Olympics for tennis, and it's a lot of pressure. She lost in, I believe, the third round, but she was not only proud of herself, she seemed a little bit better. But even before then, she ran into some controversy. I believe it was during what tournament was it? It was during.
Was it U.S. Open? Yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. Open. No, was it the U.S. Open? Hold on, no, because she skipped the. Okay, it wasn't the French. No, it was during the French. So it was during Roland Garros. So it was during the French Open. And she wanted to refuse to talk. It was a tournament called Roland Garros. It's a Grand Slam tennis tournament, also known as the French Open. In Paris, France, is played on clay. And what she struggled with is that she didn't want to go to the press because she was going through a deep depression at the time. She just wanted to be like Marshawn Lynch and just come to work and come home. But the issue is with the International Tennis Federation, the ITF, in affiliation with the Grand Slam tournaments, they have kind of like a coalition they do. They said that if she doesn't go to the press, not only will she be fined every day, but there could be a possibility where she could be suspended from future Grand Slams. So when that hit, that hit hard. And that would be hard on any athlete because now you're stopping someone's lifeline. So I think the smartest decision she made was just to withdraw completely, like not allowing them to force her out, because that would have really crushed her mental health even further. So I have a tweet actually I'm going to share during that time period with Naomi Osaka, because both of them have really opened up and made it acceptable not only for athletes, but for really ordinary people to really admit they have mental health problems. Well, not problems, have mental health issues. That's a better way to describe it, and really how to deal with it and to really raise awareness for it. So I'll share this on the screen and I'll read it for everyone. It's two big tweets. So here it says, can you see it, Meg?
It's loading.
Okay. I think you can see it now, but yeah, it's pretty small, so I'll read it for you guys. And for our radio audience, thanks for bearing in. It says, "Hello, everyone. This isn't a situation I ever imagined or intended when I posted a few days ago. I think now the best thing for the tournament and the other players and my well-being is that I withdraw so that everyone can get back to focusing on tennis going on in Paris. That is Roland Garros, the French Open. I never wanted to be a distraction, and I accept that my timing was not ideal and my message could have been clear. More importantly, I would never trivialize mental health or use the term lightly. The truth is that I have suffered long bouts of depression since the US Open in 2018, and I've had a really hard time coping with that." Now, for just to pause for a second, those who don't understand about what happened in 2018, during the 2018 US Open, she was in the final against Serena Williams, a 23-time Grand Slam winning champion, arguably one of the greatest women tennis players of all time. And there was a little bit of controversy there, specifically with Serena Williams, with the chair umpire, in terms of line calls and in terms of her personal conduct. And that really hurted Serena that really hurted Naomi, specifically because Serena Williams, the American, was playing at the US Open and American Grand Slam, the entire crowd being against Naomi during that time, and really heavily being for Serena. It was an impossible situation for a young 19-year-old tennis player and her first ever Grand Slam winning it to ever go through the crowd being against her. And she was crying during really the trophy ceremony after she was winning. And so that was just some quick background about everything she went through. So it goes on to say, anyone that knows me knows I'm introverted. She's always been that way throughout her entire career. She's always a quiet person. She says, and anyone that has seen me at a tennis tournament noticed that I'm often wearing headphones as that keeps dull my social anxiety. Though the tennis press has always been kind to me, and I want to apologize especially to all the cool journalists who I may have hurt. I am not a natural public speaker and get waves of anxiety before I speak to the world's media. I get really nervous and I find it stressful to always try to engage and give you the best answers I can. So here in Paris, I was already feeling vulnerable and anxious, so I thought it was better to exercise self-care and skip the press conferences. I announced it preemptively because I do feel like the rules are quite outdated in parts, and I wanted to highlight that. I quote privately to the tournament apologizing and saying that I would be more than happy to speak with them after the tournament as the slams are intense. I'm going to take the time away from the court now, but when the time is right, I really want to work with the tour to discuss ways we can make things better for the players, press, and fans. Anyways, hope you are all doing well and staying safe. Love you guys. I'll see you when I see you. So this was May 31st. So this was actually a month ago when she withdrew from the French Open due to citing mental health concerns and also to prevent herself from being preemptively removed from the tournament due to the certain rules saying that if you skip press conferences, you could be punishable up to being essentially suspended from future Grand Slam events. So I talked to Lef. Meg, what are your thoughts really on Naomi Osaka's situation initially, and really how does it connect with Simone Biles and what she's going through?
I mean, definitely, I think she continues to make that point of just how important it is to recognize when people have things like social anxiety, when people have mental health concerns, like we're not all going like this is so hard to talk about, especially as someone who has some of these issues herself. Like I know I have massive anxiety, and like performing for you guys, as much as I love you, sometimes like I wonder like, oh my god, am I performing well? Because I know I have ADHD and that I ramble all over the place, and so I have huge anxiety about that, like just talking to a camera. So I can imagine talking to a bunch of press when you're dealing with that kind of stress. Like imagine even talking to your family and friends when you're in a depressive episode and not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to engage with people, and they're trying to force you to do that. It's like, no, you have to perform. You have to talk to people even though you don't want to. And like sometimes, we can, put on, push through, put on a happy face and, perform for the world, even though inside we're aching. But at a certain point, that takes a toll. Look what happened to Robin Williams, who we all thought was, one of the happiest men in the entire world, who made us all laugh, only to find out that he was depressed and then he killed himself. Like, we have to take these things into consideration. We can't just expect people to perform for us at all moments of the day. Like, just because they're public figures doesn't mean that they're also not human. And we need to start taking these things into account. We need to treat people with human dignity. And that's the whole thing. We need to treat people with dignity. Like, we're seeing that with, one of our friends on Twitter, Savage Joy, who's going through so much right now, only to be harassed relentlessly. How these are real human beings. These are real human beings, guys. We're all real human beings. And we can't treat each other like we're trash, like we're nothing. And honestly, I get so sick and tired of seeing that garbage. Doesn't matter who it is. We need to treat each other like we're human beings. So I'll let you pick up there, RJ.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% about that. Really, the attacking
Sorry,
of
Emily's
Savage.
not.
Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say? I think we're losing Meg a little bit.
You got me back?
Meg, you there? Okay, I think you're back now.
Am I
What'd
back?
you say?
Okay.
Yep, you're back. What'd you say?
Emily, Emily thought I meant grade, but no, it's Savage Joy.
Correct.
My love and solidarity to Joy, Savage Joy, Ringman. We shouldn't be treating each other like garbage, guys.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the attacks that Savage Joy is getting right now, specifically being one of the main organizers of March Medicare for All, I believe it's incredibly unfair, and it's borderline harassment at this point to really attack her that way on Twitter. We all know who has been attacking her, so no need to relitigate that. But if you have concerns about how an organization is run, how you were treated, it's really more importantly to have those private conversations with those who are in the organization and with those who are in leadership. And if you can't get anything resolved, gracefully back away. I think just important too that at least get your story heard and then talk it out, and they would make things better. Because I don't think these Twitter back and forths and call outs, it doesn't really help, because all it's going to show is that the left is more fractured and divided, and it doesn't make any new people want to come into a movement enticed to come if they see it's that kind of that petty and really that dysfunctional. So I do want to say that, and really to go back to really what we're talking about Simone Biles, and as well as Naomi Osaka. Those two did a very good job, even though their circumstances were different. Now, you could make the argument one circumstance was harder than the other. In terms of Osaka, essentially she was forced, like she had to, because of certain rules, ancient archaic rules. The Grand Slam tournaments would have just suspended her anyway. Or you could look at Naomi Osaka.
Which is such stupid rules.
Yeah, exactly. And also you can look at terms of Simone Biles. Yeah, exactly. Like what happened with Simone Biles. Well, she's arguably, not even arguably, she's the greatest women's gymnast of all time. And there's a whole lot of pressure on her head. Like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And for her to back out, it shows that she must have really been suffering. And for her to do it in the Olympic stage, which she has taken 4 years of her life to train for, it really shows how hard it was for her to make the decision. And it really showed how strong she was to back out, So, and you could see like LeBron James, many other star athletes really stand in solidarity, saying they made that right decision. The United States Gymnast Group, Confederation, said that they're 100% behind Simone Biles and that they're proud of her for what she's done.
Right. Absolutely, and I think that seeing all that solidarity for Simone is really beautiful, because I mean, imagine knowing, like, you know, you're going through such a hard time and knowing, okay, this is going, like, people are not going to like this. Like, I know I'm going to get shit for this, but I have to do it because it's the best thing for everyone in the long run. And you know, they still won silver in that round. So I mean, you never know what could have happened had she performed. Maybe they could have won gold. Maybe they would have not placed at all. You never know. But I think she made a good choice, not only for herself, but her teammates. And the fact that she continued to be there on the sidelines supporting her sisters. It just shows what a strong and beautiful person that she is. And so shout out to Simone Biles. You're my hero.
Yeah, excuse me. I agree with that 100%. What you said as well. I think in our society, just to really tie it together with not only politics, but as well as culture, we need to get rid of this cultural stigmas about mental health. And I mentioned earlier how femininity as well as masculinity, those type of gender norms that we go through regards with mental health. Like when you're a young man, you're taught man up, real men don't cry. When it's woman, you know, woman up. You know, it's those type of phrases, those type of mentalities that really impact young people when they're growing up and really starting to go into adulthood.
Right.
And even if you are an adult, a lot of times you do struggle with how you're treated by your parents or by your family, and friends, which could really impact you. Your childhood really impacts really your mental health going all the way as you get up into age. So in your eyes, what can we do in terms of not only societal norms, but what should we do as leftists to really advocate for mental health in the political spectrum?
I mean, absolutely. Like, whenever we're kind of like the way that I was even talking about our comrade Savage Joy, you know, when somebody is suffering, you know, stand by them. Don't try to, like, one of the worst things that you can do is toxic positivity of saying, you know, oh, you know, things will get better. You know, you just got to get through it. Put on, you know, fake it till you make it. It's like, no, validate their feelings. Say, you know what? Okay, you're feeling sad. You know, do you want to talk about it? Like, what do you want to, like? Okay, if you don't want to talk about it, just know that I'm here for you for whatever you need me for. If you need, like, just tell me what I can do to support you. And, you know, what is it that you need in this moment? And, you know, listen and validate those feelings. Don't try to make it about yourself, or because a lot of people will try to say, like, you know, I hate to see you so sad. Like, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the other person. Don't try to say, oh, I hate it when you seem sad because that makes me sad. Like, it's not about you. It's about their feelings. And yes, their feelings definitely impact how you're feeling in that moment, but center them and try to make sure that we need to make sure that we have access to, you know, if they need to call someone in the moment, like, you know, whether it's BetterHelp or a psychologist or some kind of mental health counselor, that there's that availability, but also that they can pay to see someone like that. Because so many of us, like, we don't have mental health care because of our crappy healthcare system. Like, and that's even one of the things that they talked about in the documentary for the athletes, was that there was no support mechanism after they left the Olympics and after they stopped performing in order to transition into real life. And that's why so many of them fell into depressive episodes, because there was no support system there whatsoever. We need to have a support system in place. And that includes having a system like Medicare for All, where we do have a system where you can go see a mental health counselor, and having enough mental health counselors. Because I know that's something that I dealt with when I was going through college, and I was going through a depressive episode, like right after the whole Me Too thing, because I'm also a sexual assault survivor, and that really triggered me. And so I wanted to see somebody, but there was nobody available because there were psychologists and mental health counselors who had lines out the waiting lists. So we need more people who are mental health counselors or people that we can talk to about what's going on in our lives. So those are really some of the solutions I see, but we need to stop with the stigma. Because if you have social anxiety, like if Naomi Osaka has social anxiety and she doesn't want to talk to the press, she doesn't have to talk to the press. We shouldn't be shaming Simone Biles for deciding, you know what, even though this is the biggest moment of my entire life, which it isn't, you're a human being, and there's so much more value than you have just being a gymnast, and everyone should know that you have human value, and we need to let everyone know you have human value. And one of the ways that these are some of the ways that we can do that is through Medicare for all, having a living wage, having housing, having availability of food, knowing you are a human being and you deserve these things. You deserve to have your basic needs met. So that's some of the starting solutions. You can take it from there, RJ.
Yeah, I think what you said is pretty valid there. And the reason why we need a Medicare for all, or for those who are farther to the left and said they want a nationalized healthcare system, the whole point of really, we have to get rid of the stigma too, that mental health is separate from physical health. It's the same thing. Like if you break your leg, you go to physical therapy. If you have mental health, even a mental health episode or mental health problems you want to fix, you should be able to go to a therapist without being stigmatized. So let's just get that out of the way right now. And so that's why we really need a Medicare for all program where, regardless of where you are on the class spectrum, we know in terms of issues in the background, material conditions that working class people have, that's outside pressure and inside pressure, which really affects your mental health. So by having Medicare for all, by having a living wage, by having adequate housing, having those type of material conditions not only change to make those lives better, will really help their mental health. And then due to type of stress, if you have family, if it's your job, if it's you personally feeling type of stress based on a certain situation that you've been through in your own life, having the ability to go to a therapist, to go to a psychiatrist, to really talk to someone without having to worry of a huge surprise medical bill would be essential. And so that's why for those even who are athletes who do have millions of dollars, like in that trailer we just seen, just because you're rich doesn't mean you don't suffer from mental health. You may have more privilege in terms of money and in terms of material conditions to support you, but they always don't have the people to talk to, and a lot of times, you need top dollars to get the type of mental health you would need. So that's the capitalism part that comes with mental health.
Yep.
Like you have to shell out sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to get an adequate health specialist to help you with your mental health, versus the average working class person, they can't afford it. They get a guy who says, oh, I only have an hour for you, and you barely talk about your issue, and they want you to come back with $100 and $200 later. Like regular people can't afford that.
Or they just put you on pills.
Yep. Or they put you on pills. So yeah, I mean, that also goes into big pharma, because the mental health specialists, often they side with big pharma. So the biggest thing they do, because it's mental health doctors, it's all about the money first before the patient. So they actually want to get paid for doing nothing, and they get paid to essentially give you pills that make you worse. And in ways, and it's two ways this works. They make you worse in terms of dulling your emotions. Like there are some pills you take where it's like, it takes away from how much dopamine gets into your receptors in your brain, which shuts off really your happiness. So it dulls your personality. Those are the type of pills you can make. And there are some pills that you can take where it in kind of ways that can make things worse, so it's really difficult. And that's why big pharma, we have to fight against them. And that's why we need essentially a national healthcare system for those regards, and there's one song that happened in 2017. It was by Logic, Khalid, and Alessia Cara. The song was named after the hotline for those who were thinking about committing suicide, where you could talk to someone. And that song came out, it was very powerful during that time. And it saved a lot of people because you admitted yourself as a sexual assault survivor, or someone else who goes through anxiety and depression. And for those individuals that are suicidal as well, having music, having writing, having people really stand up for the advocacy for mental health is very essential. It makes people feel like they're not alone and feel like there's a community. So, what do you think about everything I said?
No, I 100% to add on, like even though.
Oh, I think Meg is paused a little bit. We'll
Again?
get her back.
Did I
Yeah,
freeze
you have to
again?
start.
Hello?
Yeah, you have to start us. We can hear you, but we can hear you now. You have to start over.
And I totally 100% agree with you. And we definitely do need a national healthcare system or Medicare for all that does cover and mental health services. That's number one. And even when we do have that system, I'm saying when, because we will get there. When we have that system, we also just need to end the stigma against mental health, because there are some people that can even afford it, who being seen as having to go to a therapist or go to a mental health counselor is seen as weakness, and so they just refuse to go because no, they're too good to go to do that. Like, that's for crazy. Like I'm not like that. It's like we have to end the stigma against mental health, because that is something that is so important to all of us. So we do need to end that. We need to make people more comfortable with speaking about their problems. And I definitely think this is especially true of men. Like men, because of, our patriarchal system of saying like, no, you man up. Like, can't show weakness. No, don't cry. Don't cry, girl. All of those things, it makes it harder for men to show emotion. And because of that, they bottle so much up, and then they refuse to go to see somebody, and it just, they either hurt themselves internally or do external force and hurt other people. And so we really do need to stop. We need to stop with all of that. Like, we need to end all of this pressure of saying like, no, you cannot show weakness. No, like, taking care of your mental health, doing self-care is not weakness. That's strength.
I think we lost you a little bit, Meg. We lost you a little bit again.
Am I back?
Okay, you're back now.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much done with my point. But yeah, we need to stop with the stigma. Like, we need to recognize that being able to speak about our feelings and speaking about the problems that we have in our lives, seeking help for those things, those are strengths. Those are not weaknesses. This is not selfish. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting Meg's internet fixed soon.
Orders.
Pretty soon, we're all just all of us. Pretty soon, all of us at FHL are just going to drive to Meg's place and put the damn internet in ourselves at this point. So, just yeah. So, the topic of mental health. I'm glad we're talking about it, because we do not only need to get rid of the stigmas, but really to be more open about it. A lot of times, so we really talked about the pressure in professional sports or professional work life. We've also talked about it, really where you're grown up in terms of your background. Also in terms of really systemic pressures you may go to in terms of job, family, that type of stuff. Also, we don't really talk much about is internal family matters, how you've been grown up, the type of behavioral analysis that will be warranted to understand how people were growing up at that time. And I think it's important as you get older to really have those conversations, not only with family, but for really a therapist if there are some issues that are really bothering you still to this day. So I am just for having really an open dialogue to really
Yeah.
not only heal yourself, but to really find a way where you could live with it and really make peace.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that athletes like Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles are bringing attention to this, because it is so important that we do talk about it. So
Perfectly well said there. We just to finish up really on this segment. We did discuss important ways to really fight for mental health. Is really fighting for Medicare for all, a single payer healthcare system, in which you could be used to really supply for mental health, because currently mental health is not really as insured correctly in the United States. Well, and health insurance isn't actually insured anywhere correctly, to be fair. So this is why we need to fight for that. And I want to know if there's any type of bills in Congress or any type of executive orders you could make to fight for mental health, because it really is an emergency. Because mental health, specifically during COVID, man,
true.
like for a lot of families, for a lot of marriages, I've heard stories online where it's like, okay, I could suffer with my asshole husband or ridiculous wife pre-COVID, but now when I'm stuck in a house with them for 6 months, it's a different story. Like you have household depression. You have also spouses that deal with physical abuse, and you have to stay in the same house with them. Like that's scary. There's also a sense of depression because you're stuck in the house. You can't go outside. There's like vitamin D went off the shelves. Like it was, I think it was vitamin D or vitamin C. I think it's vitamin D for your skin,
vitamin
like
D.
because you're not right, because you're not getting a lot of sun. So so let's actually talk about this. So how did you feel? So that entire, well, we're still in COVID, but like the lockdown phase. Like how did you feel really about the lockdown phase and how it affected your mental health?
Like honestly, because I'm an introvert, I was like, this is where I shine. Like I'm very good at being by myself, so it didn't affect me nearly as much, especially since it was hard because you're only talking to people via text or whatever, and or through a camera, like not being able to drive and see my friends and things like that. So that was definitely difficult. But I don't think it affected me the same way that it affected most people, except for it's like, okay, especially since I was very lowly employed before COVID happened. Like I was working as a substitute teacher, and then COVID happened, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, so now I don't even have a job. So, and it's going to be hard to find a job during COVID because like I'm sure not many people are going to be hiring. So that for me was the most difficult part, was like basically not having a job and not having anything really to do with myself. And particularly dealing with like family members saying like, okay, well, what are you going to do for a job now? I was like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? Like everything's closed. Like, well, why don't you find an online job? Like, I'm sure everyone else is trying to find an online job too. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like that was the biggest thing that I had trouble with. But then I definitely, I found things that I could be doing. I think I became very online during that time. And I think especially since that was the time where the election was kind of wrapping up too, and Bernie was Bernie dropped out, and so all of those things were kind of happening all at once. So that was like, okay, what the hell do I do now that Bernie's done, and I'm not gonna be doing like calling people to make sure that they're voting for him, because I was doing some of that. It's like, okay, what do I do myself? And so I became very online. That's the one thing. I became very, very online.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of similar. That's when I really defined myself as a terminally online leftist. Because, like, during COVID, I would tweet 150 times a day.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like, and that was during the time of, like, when Bernie was dropping out, and it was just a depressing time period. Like, you hear all the news with DNC cheating again, then the bad faith actors from Forced to Vote start coming out again. So it was just a hellscape for a while, and I felt like in ways during the lockdown, like Twitter kind of helped a lot of people, helped me make a lot of friends, find like a refuge to meet different people because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do anything. All I had in COVID was like Twitter and YouTube. That's
Basically,
all I
yeah.
had. Because you guys know me, I'm a cheap ass. I'm not paying for streaming services. Well, I'd be lying. I have Hulu, which is $5 a month, but like that's about it. I'm not really spending money on anything else.
Oh, you have it with ads? Orange had the version with ads?
Yeah, I have it with ads. It's good because I can take a break, you know. So I don't the ads don't really bother me as much, and I'm a cheap ass anyway. So the cheapest price is the best price for me. So the only disappointing part is there's some movies I want to watch, but you have to upgrade your subscription. I'm like, damn it. Yeah. So one of the big hard parts for me during COVID was like the lockdown specifically in terms of businesses and type of facilities being closed. Like bowling alleys were closed. The tennis, like Gretchen shut down the tennis courts. I'm like, what are you doing? It's outside. Why are you shutting down the tennis courts? So I know my elitism is showing. Not everyone can play tennis. Not everyone can afford it. I'm sorry. I'm elitist. I just exposed myself.
I mean,
Not
there are
everybody
tennis
can play
courts down
golf.
by my high school. There are tennis courts. Like, the tennis courts are free, y'all. Like, I don't know where you're playing. I don't know where you're paying to play tennis. Like, the tennis courts in my town are right next to the high school, and they're free to everybody. Who's paying to play tennis?
Oh, there's clay. There's clay you can play on. You could pay for
okay.
clay. That's the elitism part. But also golf, because I put on Twitter, oh yeah, I'm golfing, yay. And everyone's like, oh, see, what are you guys paying RJ for be golfing? And it's just like, oh, great, here we go. But those are like all I've been doing for. So just to wrap it up, like all I've been struggle with my mental health was not being able to go. Well, like I'm a repetitive person, like having a routine. But if it gets stale, that's when it affects me. You know, because I like having a schedule and a plan, but I love adventure. That's my spirit. And whenever I feel like things are getting stagnant, which during that time period, during like the lockdowns, it was very stagnant, you know, and I understand the mentality of it to ensure that everyone is safe, to ensure that we don't spread the virus further. But, you know, that's the fault of the United States government. So I'm coming after my personal affiliations first, not just the political, but I don't want to go into further about the COVID thing, just so I don't get dinged by YouTube. But yeah, I mean, that's just my feeling about it. Like all I had was YouTube, Twitter, riding my bike and playing sports whenever Gretsch opened the tennis courts again. So that's because of public parks. Like they closed down the parks too, and that's where I go to play tennis, and it was locked. They locked it. So yeah, and that's just how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the other hard part was like whenever I returned to substitute teaching when schools reopened in Florida, like pretty early on into the 2020 school year. And it was like a hybrid. So some of the students were online and some of them were in person. So of course, middle schoolers don't want to wear their damn masks. So I was like wrangling cats, like put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on. And then like the kid, like some of the kids who were online wouldn't show up in class, and others like you couldn't give them nearly the amount of attention because you know some of the kids in class were acting up, and it was just a whole big thing, and it was kind of a mess. So I was actually happy when they went back to fully in person, but I was also like, oh, this is going to be dangerous. And there were definitely times where like one kid would catch COVID and like half of my class would disappear because they were sitting too close to that student. So it's just like, okay, if you're gonna be out of school, you know, keep an eye on Google Classroom. That way you know what's going on. And half of them don't pay attention to Google Classroom and come back to school going, okay, what did I miss? A whole section. Go figure it out because I can't help you because I have to start teaching this new section. Like it was just mayhem. It was mayhem. It was a lot of stress.
Yeah, I feel you
like
on
I'm
that.
not a full-time teacher. Like I don't have I'm not educated in being a full-time teacher, and I'm as a long-term sub I'm basically teaching full-time without the credentials. And it's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, and half the time it's like, okay, I can't deal with you. Just go to the office.
Yeah, that's
Especially someone with ADHD. If someone's doing something out of the corner of my eye, I can't not ignore it. Like people who be like, oh, just ignore it. Like I can't. I have ADHD.
yeah. I mean, I bet it would be really hard for teachers during COVID because trying to get a little toddler or a
Mhm.
young little person to put on a mask and expect them to sit
Oh
still
God.
and not
That's why I don't teach
be
elementary school.
yeah. So
I
it's
refused.
ridiculous. So yeah, that would be very hard to do, and it also affects the kids. Trying to tell the kid, oh, you only have to be like 6 foot distance, and to really essentially wear a mask. And kids are going to be rebellious, and oftentimes they're going to forget. They always forget. So you have to constantly nag, put your mask on. Hey, put your mask on.
Where's your
So
mask? Wait, where'd your mask go? Like, oh, I left it in the last classroom. I was like, go get a new one.
like, do teachers have to have like boxes of masks because like the little kids just like go to the playground or like purposely
Well,
throw it on the playground?
Well, I don't know about elementary because I don't teach elementary. I taught middle school, so like 6th through 8th grade. So no one they didn't have to go to the playground. But no, it was definitely difficult trying to make sure it like some of them were like just like wear it like a chin guard, like wear it down here, like pull your mask up. It was crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But
One final thing I want to talk to you about because our audience mentioned it before is we discussed we started discussing material conditions which leads to mental health. We discussed housing
yeah.
discrepancy. We really discussed job pressures. But one thing we left out was really food discrepancy in terms of
Oh
being
yeah.
able to afford great food, in terms of great produce, to really eat,
Mhm.
because a lot of what you put into your body affects how you
Mhm.
function. Like if you're poor and working class in America and you can't afford produce, that really affects your nutrients, and it really affects a young body
Mhm.
growing up. And it also affects the parent to be able to function, have high energy, and to really function well
Mhm.
throughout the day. So, like, what are your
Right.
thoughts really on how not having a good diet and not being able to afford a good diet, how that affects your mental health?
Oh, 100%. Like they've even proven through studies that not having a good diet, really exacerbates different conditions like depression and anxiety and ADHD and, what have you. And just imagine, especially being a young person and having to like go to school and not have breakfast that morning. Like I know I've had students um, who would come to school having not eaten anything. They're like, okay, what is going on with you today? Like, oh, I didn't eat breakfast this morning. I was like, okay. And I would literally start keeping granola bars and Pop Tarts in my cabinets for those kids who didn't eat anything, because like, no, I need you to be working at your best capacity. Here's a Pop Tart. I know it's just sugar. Like that's all I can give you right now. But like, fine, get lunch. You need make sure to eat lunch. That way you can perform better in the afternoon. But you need to start eating. But like a lot of these kids, like either their parents aren't home to make them food, or they don't know how to get food themselves. They don't get to school on time to get breakfast at school, or they don't want to eat the school food. Because I know that's something that I dealt with when I was younger, is that I hated eating school food. I would skip lunch. Like I would skip breakfast so that way I could sleep in later. I would not eat lunch because I didn't want to eat school food. Then I had swim practice after school, so I wouldn't eat anything until late at night because both my parents were working. Like maybe we would have fast food, so I was so malnourished growing up. In like high school, I ended up having an accidental like eating disorder. I wasn't eating, and I had lost so much weight, and I became so sick. Like hemoglobin, my hemoglobin, which normally the range is like 12 to 15, mine was a 6. Like I was so sick. So I learned through that like how important diet is and how much that affects, like if you're not eating breakfast in the morning, do you think you're going to be able to have decent mental capacity throughout the day? in order to do schoolwork, to perform at work. Like, no. So not being able to have a good diet, not having access to food, not being able to have breakfast in the morning or have lunch in the afternoon, that affects you on so many different levels. Not only just nutrients, but just to be able to function throughout the day. If you can't function at work or in school or whatever activity that you're doing, then you're going to suffer, and you're going to suffer not only mentally but physically, and it's insane. Like, we really need to focus on making sure everybody has access to good, decent food.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you opened really a good can, actually, of information, really to extend to talk about poverty, because when you're talking about your experience being a teacher and kids coming to school hungry, that's really a lot of the fault goes to the United States government, especially Congress, by defunding education for so many different times.
Right.
And by not putting money into educational programs federally, it really affects how much dollars the state can supply to give to education, especially to the breakfast program for schools, and as well as lunch programs. And you see over time the quality of food
Ooh, display that
dissipates.
right there. What Deep Moody just said, display that.
Oh,
That's good.
Okay,
A
what is it?
violation of Article 25.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's actually a very good comment there. I should look that up real quick. So, a violation of Article 25 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Yeah, that's very powerful. I'll look that up. But what you said, Meg, was very interesting, because of course, when I was in high school and middle school, the breakfast program and lunch program was terrible. I mean, it was gross. I mean, at one point in high school, they just had Bosco sticks, and it's like, that's not a meal. That's not gonna keep somebody refreshed and have great nutrition for the rest of the day. And
Yeah.
and one of the big things too is when under the Obama administration, when Michelle Obama made her initiative to try to make school lunches better, like the salads and that type of stuff, which is pretty good. I think that's a good idea. One of the big issues is that there wasn't enough money put into the breakfast program.
Yeah.
It's almost like
to be able to do that.
They were told, they was almost told, like, the existing money that was given to them, they have to make extra money for the actual salad program. Like, they really didn't increase the budget.
Yeah.
So it really defeats the purpose. It actually makes it worse to supply good food, because instead of now doing like a cheap, nasty pizza or some weird lasagna and something else, now you have to do a salad with like Bosco sticks, and it's like, you don't get your protein, you don't get your grains,
No.
you don't get the type of fruit you would need. Like, it's just ridiculous. And back to really produce and groceries and all these type of payments, a regular household, if you have a kid, or just to supply yourself, produce is always rising. Like, I'm still in college, but like when I was a freshman, I told myself, you know what? I hear the statistic about college kids, the freshman 15. You know, I'm gonna avoid that. I'm not gonna gain that weight. I'm gonna drink smoothies. I'm gonna eat healthier. And I go to Kroger, which is a grocery chain in the Midwest. I look at the price of oranges, mangoes, pineapple, strawberries, kiwi, blueberries, apples, raspberries, grapes, and I look at the price. I'm like, do I want to pay for all of this, which is $30, and I'm a poor college kid, or do I look at, I don't know, this frozen stuff or this dried stuff, or I don't know, chips and
like a hungry man dinner?
Yeah, so it just makes it very difficult, because we know the price of food and these commodities always increases. Inflation always increases, but the actual buying power decreases, because the rises of the wages increase like a flat line, whereas the price of the commodity of goods always increases with inflation. But it's amazing how, in terms of what you're being paid, doesn't increase with inflation as well. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, it makes it impossible for you to eat healthier and to really supply a family. So what do you think?
No, 100%. It's like when vegetables and fruits are, this much money. And for the same cost, you can get a few bags of chips or, some macaroni and cheese or something that you can make quickly and, cheaply. What are you going to go for? Especially if you had to feed, a family. Like maybe you might get some pepperoni or something instead of, like decent, chicken cutlets or like beef or something like that. And you'll get whatever you can feed your whole family. So often, that means, okay, I have to do whatever I can do that I can preserve too. So like, okay, a lot of canned stuff, which means preservatives or things that are in a bag that you can easily like steam or whatever. Again, preservatives, things that are grains that have high sugar or high salt content.
Nope, I think we lost you a little bit, Meg. We heard you after you said salt content. That's when you broken up. So it looks like the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is trying to cut you off because you're messing with their profits. So
take that, FDA. But
yeah, so we heard you.
That's really what it goes.
Yeah,
but it's all those preservatives and all the preservatives and all that stuff, and then of course what's going to happen when you have all that high sugar and all that high fat is, okay, now we're looking at being pre-diabetes, and now that's going to cost you more. It's very expensive to be in poverty. It's so unbelievably expensive to be in poverty, and it's impossible to get out. And that's why we're supposed to live in this meritocracy system. But in order to defeat poverty, it's like, oh, you're seen as exceptional. It's like, no, that's not really how it works. Because, like, you have that leg up that you can easily make it in the world. When you're in poverty, you really have to. It's so much stress. And that's why it's people who are poor are so unhealthy, because they're dealing with not being able to have good food, dealing with that extra stress of not having to work multiple jobs and pay for food and deal with all these different things. Like maybe your car breaks down and now you can't go to work. Now you can't get to the grocery store because it's 20 miles away, because you have to live in an area where you don't have easy access. Like there are so many different things that affect people who are working poor or who are in poverty. And it's insane the way that we treat people who are in poverty, really by no fault of their own. This is a systemic issue. This is not the way that people treat, like, oh, you are just not working hard enough. You are not working hard enough, so yeah, you're going to be in poverty. Get off your ass and go do something. Like, this hustle culture that we live in, it's like, that's not what happens. That's not the real world. Like, I saw this meme not too long ago about how expensive it is for somebody to even get a job. Like, some people are too poor even to get a job because they don't have something to wear to an interview. They don't have a computer in order to apply for jobs. They don't have access to the internet to apply because so many applications are on computers nowadays. You have to like go to Indeed or Monster or or whatever, and you don't have access. Maybe you don't have the money to get your hair done, or in order to have a car in order to drive to the interview, and therefore have a car to drive to the interview. You don't have one to drive to the job. So we need to stop treating poor people as if it's their fault, because it's not. It's a systemic issue.
I agree 100% on that. And one big food item Chad is talking about is how bananas are going through another viral epidemic. Bananas.
Oh, Jesus.
And bananas, of course, they're named after the fruit, but you have banana trees. And I believe banana trees only bear fruit from one tree, and then the tree is essentially useless. They have to cut it down and replant another one. It makes it more difficult because you can't even get the fruit because the virus essentially kills off the tree before it bears fruit. And bananas have seeds, and if the tree dies and stuff before the seeds are even fertile, that affects the reproduction life of the banana tree. So I did want to acknowledge that, because banana trees in general, specifically, I keep forgetting where bananas are growing. They're in the global south, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah, so they've
Mexico,
been
Colombia.
right. So they've been struggling with periodically. I've heard about it last time in high school about banana trees having certain viruses and it's difficult to heal. A lot of times, if you get like an infected banana tree, you just kind of have to burn it so it doesn't infect the other trees. But this is something that's going to impact really the trade system because
Hmm.
these type of plants and fruits in the global south, it affects really their types of
Hmm.
economy. So if not only does those type of trees go extinct, it's terrible. Colombia, thank you. It's terrible
Hmm.
for the environment, and it also makes these industries struggle. So I did want to say
Right,
about that.
and yeah, we can't even begin to get into the corporate control of organizations like Chiquita, who dominate in those regions, and basically like their work their working conditions are horrible, especially with like companies with Chiquita. So the working conditions, the viruses, like there are so many things that we can talk about in reference. In I do love grape. I do love mandarins. I live in the orange state, so like Florida and California. Get your Florida oranges. I actually live in a community of orange groves, and that is also impacted of immigration because we have a huge immigration population who come and pick the oranges every year, and so there's that as well. There's all these issues are so intersectional, guys. They're so intersectional, especially in Immokalee, which has a huge tomato population. They have they grow tomatoes there, and there was a big strike against Wendy's because of their treatment of Immokalee migrant workers who were picking tomatoes there, and because they're treated horribly as well. And particularly immigrants who are involved in agriculture, they're treated horribly, and they can't say anything because they might get deported. So they don't seek treatment. They don't speak out against labor, what happens with labor. So I mean, we do have to talk about all these issues because they are intersectional, guys.
Yeah, that's very true on that. Well, I think this really sums up our mental health segment I wanted to do with you. There's a couple more stories I wanted to cover. I don't know if you want to stay or not, but I'll tell you the
Yeah,
stories I
sure.
wanted to cover before. I wanted to cover really the evictions moratorium. This could be cutting off in a day. I believe
Mm,
after today is when it
yeah.
officially ends. And also young people on the filibuster as well, and then a couple of Chuck Todd's tweets. But I want to start off with the fun part, so let's let's go with Chuck Todd's tweets. I'll put that on the screen for you guys. That was very shocking when I read that. Like,
Hmm.
it gives me
Yeah.
real Brian Stelter vibes. Like Chuck Todd
Oh
is
well,
like the
probably
Brian.
yeah. We're probably also sorry. We may also have to talk about the fact that Congress just passed to improve their own health clinic, but it will not vote for Medicare for all. Like,
Yeah,
they're doing everything for themselves, guys, and not for us.
yeah. So it says here by Christopher Boozy
All
that
right,
Chuck
give me
Todd.
2 seconds. My dogs want to leave my room. Hold on 1 second. Give me one moment. Let me
Okay, 1 second. I'll just
remove
talk to
myself.
the audience. Yeah, guys. So, what do you guys think about Meg so far? She's great. Love her from FHL. Yeah, someone says Schmuck Todd. Yeah, Chuck Todd is the worst, guys. Like, he's literally the Brian Stelter of MSNBC. Like, this guy thinks like he's right, and like he says stuff out of his ass like that's not true. Like, man, is he so annoying. So yeah, we'll get Meg back here for our radio audience. Thank you for still sticking around. I think Meg is back. Okay, Meg is back.
Yep.
Perfect. I am getting better at stalling. So okay, so we got the tweet up. It's actually two different tweets, but the first one is by Christopher Boozy. It says Chuck Todd thinks more Republican senators would have voted to convict Trump if the police officers had testified. Chuck Todd is the Hugh Hewitt of Chris Sillizas. And he also commented to say, I guess Chuck Todd forgot Republican senators were there on January 6th, hiding in fear. And so then I'll share another tweet, and then I'll get your comments on it. So let me actually find that one again. So where is it at? Okay, 1 second. I should have never closed that out. Okay, so that was it. That was surprising for me. So here's the other one. This is another tweet. I will put this on the screen
Questionable
for you
movie
guys.
choices. What?
What'd you say?
No, I
Oh,
was
they're
just
giving out.
looking at one of the comments.
Oh,
I
that's
have
funny.
questionable movie choices, apparently.
Oh, jeez.
Inside
Well, hey,
Nerdologics, guys.
oh, you're talking about Nerdologics?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you guys are seeing my DMs, it's my show notes, so you're not going to see any surprise funsies in there. But it says here that Chuck Todd says that we should have fought back better in the mainstream media. We should have accepted the premise that there was liberal bias. We bought into the idea that, oh my God, we're perceived as having liberal bias from his other interview. So I want to get your comments on this because this thing about Chuck Todd is ridiculous. So in the first instance, like he basically assumed that if we gave the police more money, or if somehow like we should have defended the police more, they would have been the ones to fight back against January 6th. When in reality, it was the Capitol Police cops that were letting the Trumpers in on January 6th. And then also Chuck Todd saying he used to defend all the time, oh, we don't have liberal biases. Like same thing with Brian Stelter. We don't have a bias. We just report the news. And then now, after seeing the backlash MSNBC and CNN is getting for their shitty news coverage, he's now admitting they have a liberal bias. So what are your thoughts on Chuck Todd?
Complete and total moron. I don't know what else there really is to say on that. He's just complete and total utter moron. He can't see beyond his own nose. It's like, get out of your studio once in a while and actually talk to people. Because, you know, as much as I think that I honestly think January 6th was kind of a joke. But, I mean, there's legitimate anger out in the world, guys. I mean, we're all freaking angry because the world sucks right now. And we had a deranged lunatic who was able to convince other deranged lunatics that he stole the election. And then they decided to show up to get, to take selfies with cops. The cops are taking selfies with these guys. And you want me to be angry about this? Like, are you serious? Like, there are videos of them literally moving the gate and letting them walk right in. Welcome to the Capitol. Please come in for tea. Would you like a selfie on your way out? Great. We'll let's do a selfie together. Would you like a podium on your way out? Please go take Nancy Pelosi's podium. Take the lectern, please. Like, they were doing absolutely nothing about it. Okay, so one person, like maybe a couple people got shot. Okay. But yeah, I'm gonna go with what James is saying. It's like free Daniel Hale, free Julian Assange, free Steve Donziger, free Nikito.
Free Res Nikito. Yeah, you said it right.
Res Nikito. Okay.
Yep.
Still solidarity with Chelsea Manning. Free Reality Winner. Free Commander X. Who else do we need to free?
Free Assange.
Those are my heroes. I'm not gonna celebrate cops who let. And the crazy thing is like, then we had Congress give them more money. Thanks so much, squad members, for standing up against that. You're please read the sarcasm in my voice, please. So they gave them more money, and then are using this to press harder on our civil liberties. Like, we all saw the list of the domestic violence extremist list that they're trying to pass. They want big tech to spy on us more and censor us. So they're using this to cut back on our civil liberties. And that's what this is all about. That's what all of this is about, is they're taking away our freedoms. They're using to take away our freedom. So I'm sorry if I'm not mad at people. And honestly, if this was Black Lives Matter who had gone to the Capitol on January 6th, if it had been leftists, we all would have been dead. Everyone would have either been put in jail or killed. Because we saw what happened last year. They were given so much latitude on January 6th. It was not an insurrection. It was a party at the Capitol. So excuse me if I'm not that. If I'm more angry about our civil liberties being destroyed than Chuck Todd's thinking that he doesn't have a liberal bias. I don't give a shit. Like, you're propaganda. That's what you are. You're corporate propaganda. You don't have a liberal bias, you have a corporate bias. And that's the truth.
Yep, you're right on with there. Like, I think it was important that you brought up January 6th in this instance, because corporate media has failed instinctively by using not only January 6th as really a political tool. And in reality, like, yes, you feel bad for those who lost their lives, but in ways, like, in terms of how it was covered, like, they're basically championing these Capitol police officers who let these guys in and saying, oh, this is why we need more money. And it's like, the Capitol Police already have so much money. Like, it's their failures. Like, if you're the average person and you were given money and you screw up on a job, you lose your job. You lose money. Like, you don't get a bonus for killing someone or for making someone's life worse. So it's just crazy how we see about that. And that's why it's important, too, to call guys out like Chuck Todd and any type of a media platform or media personality who says things about liberal biases. Because you're right, it's not liberal bias, it's corporate bias. It's just the type of spectrum you see. And in terms of how really the effects of January 6th is affecting our civil liberties by using the expansion of the Patriot Act, which we've seen on this chat, they used the Patriot Act, which was designed to spy on international civilians for war. They use that same technology to spy on Black Lives Matter protesters to see where they're going home to their parents so they can track them. Like, shouldn't that be illegal? Isn't that against our civil liberties? This is what happens when you rely on national security and trade it in for. This is what happens when you trade civil liberties for national security in this country. That's exactly what happens. And we have a comment here from James Root that I like. It says, you don't have rights, but rather borrowed privileges. Rights cannot be taken away with a signature. George Carlin. Rest in peace to George Carlin. True. He was right. His bits, his stand-up comedy was the truth. And I feel like even later on in his life, he admitted that he didn't want to be right. His whole idea was to wake people up to realize what they all have in common and how they could stand up and fight against the system. So if he was alive today, he wouldn't want to be right. He would want us to stand up and fight. Wow, I made that rhyme. Holy, look at me. I'm getting better at this.
We saw what they did. We saw what they did to Ryan from Soapbox, Queer Ella Mode online. Like, the Capitol Police sent Chip to his house because someone commented, because he said something about AOC, and somebody commented on his feed, because they thought it was him who threatened AOC. The Capitol Police sent Chip after him to interview him at his house. So the Capitol Police is tracking us on Twitter and using our IPs to find out where the hell we live. That's crazy.
You're right.
That's insanity.
Yeah, so like showing up at his house, basically harassing him about a tweet, and it's like, are you serious? And of course, they ask you all these questions because they smeared him for going after a sitting congressperson. It was AOC. The arguments whether it was directly coming from AOC or not is still up for debate. Or actually probably not up for a debate. I just don't know the current knowledge about that now. I have to look up and do more research later. But that's kind of like the background of that. We also see what happened to Magnus. Whether you agree with his politics or not, but due to the Biden administration coming out with the mandate saying that anyone who is anti-capitalist or anti-establishment is deemed a domestic terrorist. And so they came after him, and the federalists was sent to his house.
We're domestic terrorists now. We're anti-capitalist, so I guess we're now domestic terrorists.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the crazy part. So to close it up, this is why we have to fight. Do what you can do in your community to fight for your civil liberties. Be for defund the police or abolishing the police. Either or is great. And really do what you can to change your communities and really help your communities fight against this media propaganda. Anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay, last story, and we'll close off for you guys. I think I will be a bad person not to cover this due to the evictions moratorium ending in a couple of days. So I have an article put up for you guys. We'll go through it extensively. Um, it's actually by Fox News Business. I'll put this on the screen for you guys right now. We'll hear Meg's comments as well, because this is actually an important story, because the whole point of the federal evictions moratorium, which both Congress and the presidency passed. Hold on, why is it playing? Okay, my fault. Sorry, this is why you don't like autoplay like videos. This is so annoying. Okay, that stopped. Thank God that stopped. Okay. What I was saying is like the important part of like the evictions moratorium ending and why it's bad is it was first passed under Congress due to like the COVID bills, and then it was also signed via executive order under Trump and extended under Biden for a few months, but now it's ending. And Congress and Biden have shown no effort to either signing legislation or the president doing executive order himself to prevent it from going. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's important is because
Biden even said that he's not going to do it.
Exactly. And it's important because over 6 million individuals are going to be homeless. And that would be absolutely terrible. So I can now officially put this on the screen. I probably should have done that like 10 seconds ago, but you guys are bearing with me. You guys know how I roll. So on the screen right now, it says South Carolina has largest share of renters at risk as eviction moratorium set to expire. So in South Carolina, a huge population of African Americans, and this would not only affect poor people, but people of color as well. This is actually a good case study towards how the rest of the country may be feeling based on where you live and how an eviction moratorium expiration would affect you. So it says if 1 out of 5 South Carolina households was evicted, vacant rental units would surge 10%. That is ridiculous. So like that's the actual price a rental unit would cost you if 1 out of 5 people were evicted. So why is this playing?
Here we go.
I do not want this to start playing. Okay. Nope. There we go. So
play
it goes
chopsticks.
on to say. What do you say? What'd you say?
I said play chopsticks.
Oh yeah. I know all these ads. Like I can't just read articles in peace. All these ads and videos, but okay, it goes on to say. That's how they make money,
RJ.
I know. Nothing is free anymore. But it says here, though, it says South Carolina residents face the biggest risk as the national ban on evictions expires on Saturday. So that's tomorrow, not today, my fault. So it says over the course of the pandemic, the state halted most evictions while offering little rental assistance, real estate brokerage Redfin said. So it goes on here to say now it's facing the largest share of renter households, 7.3%, that say they are very likely to face eviction, according to the brokerage. Per the report, the number of vacant rental units would surge 10%, even if just 1 out of 5 households had to leave. That's less than 25%, causing rental prices to decrease substantially due to the uptick in supply. So it says, however, it would also mean that over 8,000 households would be evicted and potentially face homelessness. Data from the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness show that are already over 4,200 residents in the state that are experiencing homelessness any given day. And without the evictions moratorium, tenants would have to hope their landlord is willing to wait for them to apply for and receive rental assistance. So it says the problem is that in many parts of South Carolina, rents and home values have risen substantially, and landlords will often prefer to evict in order to find a tenant who will pay a market rent. However, like South Carolina, New Hampshire, California, Washington, and New Jersey, housing markets could be impacted in a very similar way. So that's a lot of chunk information. So let's break it down with you, Meg. So I'll give you my opinion later.
Mhm.
But what it shows to you is how the economy is changing in terms of the prices going up.
Mhm.
Also, we know during COVID, due to the evictions moratorium setting in, all it does is it halts the payment process. And of course, you can apply for federal assistance to get help with rental insurance, but there's such long lines, not everyone gets it, and the renters need the money. So the best way for these landlords to get their money is by searching for their tenants and evicting their current ones. So, and also
Yep.
too, there was a law passed in California that said they're essentially making homelessness illegal, and it was voted upon by almost everybody, the entire California California state Congress. So, what are your thoughts on everything we read so far, and really the ongoing housing renters
Mhm.
foreclosure as well?
Yeah, and this just goes to show like the way that they handled this whole pandemic was absolutely wrong. It was 100% wrong because if you looked at the way that other nations, you know, did rework their economy for COVID was, they encouraged everybody to stay home. And in order to encourage everybody to stay home, they said, okay, we're going to back up payrolls. That way employers don't have to lay off workers. So everybody can stay employed where they are. And we'll just back up the payrolls. That way people can continue to get paid. We'll also input a UBI. And they were paying their citizens like $2,000 a month. And this happened in Canada, this happened in Germany, in the UK, and all across Europe. And the United States decided not to do that. They just said, okay, upload all of your workers, just let.
Oh, I think we lost Meg a little bit. We lost you a little bit, Meg. You may have to start over.
Am I back?
Yep, you're back now.
Okay. So they, instead of saying, oh yeah, stay home and, we'll back up your payrolls, we'll make it easier for you to pay your bills during this time by giving you UBI. So everything's going to be okay. Instead of doing that, the United States said, okay, if we have to close all the businesses, then, just fire all your workers, put them on unemployment. That's what we're going to do. We're going to just lay off all your workers. They can get unemployment. We'll just, add unemployment insurance. And what happened, like, we had millions of people lose their employer-based health insurance. We had millions of people trying to get unemployment and overloading the system. As I know in Florida, it was a huge wait list just get online.
I think we lost Meg again.
Am I back?
We need to get you.
Am I back?
I think you're back now. Yeah, we need to get Meg the internet.
Don't worry. It's coming on Tuesday. I'll keep saying it. It's coming on Tuesday. But I will be celebrating. So they offloaded everyone onto the unemployment rolls. So now, once they did that, it's like, oh, you know what? That was a stupid idea. Because unemployment was the only thing, that extra plus up on unemployment kept people from sliding into poverty. But I got the McDonald's Wi-Fi. That's funny. But unemployment was the only thing that kept people from sliding into unemployment or into poverty. That's the only thing that kept most people from sliding into poverty. And they just like, you know what? No, we gotta go. This isn't working. Like, our businesses are suffering because nobody's spending money because nobody has money. And so all that little bit of unemployment, like, okay, now we have to get people back to work. This isn't working for us. We got to get everybody back to work. So COVID is over, guys. So, but then people couldn't go back to work because we're still in COVID. People fell months behind on their rent or their mortgages. And you're absolutely right. Like, with the cost of housing, and particularly landlords, I'm sure, are months behind on their mortgage payments and all that, depending on if they have a mortgage or not. But they have to pay. Landlords suck, but they still have to. Yeah, they have to pay bills too, unfortunately. But They definitely do. They want to, in order to recoup whatever it is that they lost, they're much more willing to say, okay, get the hell out and find new tenants that they can charge more, rather than, wait until they can apply and say, okay, just give me a few months and I'll apply for rental assistance and you'll still get your money. But it's like, nope, because I've lost too much money, so I can't have you living here. So either pay me more or I'm going to kick you out. And that's their prerogative. That's unfortunately their prerogatives, that they would much rather kick you out of your home and try to find someone else who I'm sorry, is there really a guarantee that you're going to find someone else to pay that rent if you jack up the price? Maybe, but I mean, it's just a sucky situation altogether. And because I know people who are landlords and they treat their tenants like shit. They've been treating their tenants like shit during this time. Like, what are you doing? Like, you want to make they're already suffering. You just want to make it worse. And it's craziness.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. One of the big things, especially since we're reading this article about what's going on in South Carolina, this is King Clyburn's home state. So you would think he would want to help out Black people who are struggling, right? Raspberry. Yeah, so it's just ridiculous about what's going on. All I got to know about this in terms of the national picture. If you're Uncle Joe wearing aviator sunglasses, looking ice cream, you're trying to look good for working class people and for the middle class. Well, one, the working class is going to be not only homeless, but pissed and homeless. And that's not a good mix and look for you politically. And also, you have a lot of middle class people have this crazy affiliation about the homeless, and it's terrible. But those are the soccer mom, orange juice, mimosa drinking liberals that voted for you, and they're not going to be happy with you about that either. So you're going to be screwed. Like, this is, and by the way, this is like right coming up on the midterms. Like, this is the time where midterm season comes on, and this is going to look good for you. Now, we all know the Republicans and Democrats don't give a shit. So this political game they always play of swinging back and forth. But we can't ignore the tribalism in the United States that's happening right now with our politics that's going to swing back and forth on a pendulum every 2 to 4 years. So that's actually a valid argument that could happen. But in terms of the actual mortgage moratorium that's going on, the failure of the United States government is in terms of giving federal dollars to and actually making it easier to apply for this type of insurance is absolutely insane. Like, we know Donald Trump, former president of the United States, how did he make his money? Real estate. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, half her net worth is in real estate. Donald Trump makes most of his money through real estate. Many other congressional people make their money through real estate. So are they to be incentivized to want to save the little man when their entire profit motive and job is ripping them off? Of course not. So at the same time, we shouldn't be surprised, but also it's like, wow, they truly not only don't give a shit, but they're not pretending to give a shit anymore. And it really shows you the difference under Trump versus Biden, because Trump, in the instance, was kind of like an old school politician where it's like, okay, like, give the poor something so they don't like hate me and they won't vote against me. But like when it comes to Biden, it's like, you have no other choice. I don't give a shit if you hate me or not. And because I don't give a shit, I know I'm your only option, then you have no choice and suck it up and you get what I take you. And in this instance, his silence is going to kill many people, because not a lot of people are going to make it homeless, and especially what's going on right now, people's material conditions, it's going to be rough. So I do want to continue on reading this article because it's actually some good information, and then we'll get your comments further, then we can wrap up. But yeah, let's actually keep going here. So to keep going, where do we leave off? Okay, So it says there will be more than 5% increase in vacant retail units in each of the aforementioned states if one. Oh, let me close this before it says anything. Okay, did I close that? Come on, close. Why didn't I close it?
I hate those damn videos.
I know. Close. Damn it, close. Oh my god. I'm literally clicking it and it's not closing. Okay, hopefully it stays paused. Okay, so so it says this means the supply for homes for rent and for sale would surge and effectively weigh down rent and home price growth. So apparently they care more about, the price of housing instead of actually people being homeless. But this is a Fox News article, so we know the type of scope they use. I just like reading articles like this so we can see what these institutions feel like and the actual political spectrum that's being given in these articles that are written. So it goes on to say the White House said President Biden would have liked to extend the federal evictions moratorium due to the spread of highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus. However, the administration argued that its hands are tied after the Supreme Court signaled the moratorium would only be extended until the end of the month. That's interesting. So it goes on, it says, given the recent spread of the Delta variant, including among the Americans both most likely to face evictions and lacking vaccinations, President Biden would have strongly supported a decision by the CDC to further extend this evictions moratorium to protect renters at this moment of heightened vulnerability, the White House said in a statement. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has made it clear that it's no longer available. Okay, so this basically shows that apparently the Supreme Court had a ruling which kind of signaled that in terms of the eviction moratorium being extended or for the actual length of it, it would stop and it wouldn't necessarily be constitutional or be sustainable. And so it seems like the Biden administration at face value is willing to just let it die. And honestly, okay, even if you're the Biden administration and you recognize that the Supreme Court is saying that any additional executive order based on like the evictions moratorium would expire, like you would think you would have alternate plans ready to go to do this, but they're not doing it. So
oh, my
so
hands are tied. What can I do? My hands are tied.
I know it's
always the
ridiculous.
excuses.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on really the Biden administration, in this instance, also the Supreme Court, and really the economy being so focused on really the prices of housing versus actually caring about the homeless?
I guess the quickest way I can say it is, didn't Lyndon B. Johnson try to pass a war on poverty? I believe he said war on poverty, not war on poor people. And that's what this is ultimately turning into. This is a war on poor people. And it's truly disgusting. And even I didn't really cover the whole California thing, but I will. It's like that is a government, that is a state government that is completely controlled by Democrats, and they voted to make being homeless a crime. That is sick. That is just gross. And especially in a state that already had a housing crisis to begin with, and now they're going to have an additional homeless crisis, and they're going to make homelessness illegal and jail homeless people. That's just gross behavior. And honestly, the only person I will give credit to one person, and that's Cori Bush, because they're about to go on a vacation and they're probably not going to deal with this, but at least she wrote, as small as an action as this is, because it's kind of pathetic. She wrote a letter and she gave it to every single person in Congress, insisting that everybody stay in order to make sure that something gets done for the housing, the rent moratorium ending. So, I'll give her even that small amount of kudos for at least trying to do that, as small of an action as that is. But it's just the fact that they're going on vacation during this type of a crisis. And, I mentioned to you earlier that, they just gave more money to their own health center. The health center that takes care of the Congress people. They gave it more funding, so they're going to get better care. Honestly, until this is why we need a general strike. This is why we need a general strike, because we are going to have so many people homeless. This is a legitimate crisis. And we not only do we need to have a general strike, we need to have a tax strike. Because if they're going to continue to give themselves raises, if they're going to continue to fund their own health care, if they're going to continue to do these things and leave us to basically fight over scraps, don't pay taxes. Don't pay your taxes. We need to have a tax strike. We need to have a spending strike, like James just said. We need to have a general strike altogether. We need to be doing this, guys, because if they're going to be doing this to us, like, no, we're not going to fund them until they fund us. They can starve along with us.
Perfectly well said there, Mega. We should support the general strike that's happening October 15th. I forgot the organization that's sponsoring this and is making all the plans for this. I'll put it in a link in the description after we're done with this live stream, but this is something we should support. The same way we supported March for Medicare for All and their organization, as well as the multiple, I believe it was 55 marches across the United States. We should support this too. And you can support in many different ways. It's not always in person. You can support it in terms of donations. You can support it.
Oh, and the student debt strike. Get involved in that too. Don't pay your student debt.
Oh, right. In terms of student debt strike as well. See, there's many types of issues you can get involved with. There's many types of ways you could support, whether it's being in person, standing with the people, whether it's through donations, whether it's through helping set up, or really attending meetings to help organize. And if you have certain connections you want to help orgs with to help develop and get more experience and get more recognition, do that. Any ways you can help is best. Also, too, March for Medicare for All, they're still looking forward to doing more events in the future. So hang with them. I don't know any specific dates, so I don't want to misspeak and speak for them, but tune in and stay in with them.
I know June, I think today they were supposed to do a tweet storm to get Joe Biden to pass Medicare for All using Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. And on August 7th, they're going to be submitting a petition to the UN to declare how human rights violations against the United States. So they're going to be submitting that to the UN as well.
That's beautiful. Yes, let's look forward to doing that. Let's put this into action. Just to wrap up, Meg, any plugs you want to give us?
Sure. On Monday, Jackie and I on our Analytics, we're going to be talking about dystopian futures. And we'll have Franco from Frank Analysis on our show. And then next Thursday, I'm going to have my first live stream on Killjoy Guide with Comrade Misty. I also have interviews with Esha from Historically coming up. And I did an interview with Tara Reid, which I'll be releasing in the next couple weeks.
Wow, that's very exciting. You're starting off with a bang. All three of my favorite people. Misty, I've had on my show a couple of times. She's great. Esha Legal, great person as well. And Tara Reid, she follows me, so strong and so brave and so intelligent. So look forward to watching your releases on the Killjoy Guide. In terms of revolutionary jargon.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon, what'd you say?
It was a very emotional conversation. So.
Yeah, I bet. So tune into that as well. In terms of revolutionary jargon, I have an exciting announcement to make. Next Friday, you should tune in because we will have the Vanguard on. So I will be talking and having fun with the guys at the Vanguard at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. So check that out. We have a great conversation. I'll be watching the comments, so be nice. Don't be assholes, but, you know.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, so it should be fun. Tune in. We're tough. We can handle it, so it should be a fun conversation. So that's kind of all I have. I'll be look forward to hearing me more soon, not just one day. I'm going to start doing my interview series where I ask people for me to interview, and I can come on at different times. So kind of look for me sometimes Mondays and Tuesdays, probably earlier today, where I interview people for an hour. I might bring that back up because, hey, now we have time slots. We can reach you guys more often. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank you, Meg, for showing up for Revolutionary Jargon for a second time. It was great to have you on the first time with my mega panel. So yeah, any last thoughts?
Nope, I think we're all good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, perfect. Anytime. So, everyone, this has been Revolutionary Jargon on FHL Network, and we are signing out. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.